Hi, I'm Marky, and on today's topic here at Yada Yada Talks is the great curse of 18. So, something that has been a topic for discussion amongst my friends, my peers, and a lot of things that I've seen like over the past and in social media is that curse of having to move out at the age of 18. Me personally, I graduated college a little bit before my 18th birthday at the age of 17. And prior to graduation, or actually immediately after graduating, I had my first apartment at 17. And it wasn't by choice, it was actually because I had got placed back into the foster care system. At the age of 17 or maybe 16, and I got my first apartment through Lighthouse Youth Services. So I started living on my own, and I've been on my own ever since. Something else that stuck out to me was that I found out that even my friends who were not in foster care also were either forced to move out at 18 or wanted to move out at 18 for multiple reasons. And a lot of times it was due to survival or due to the burden that they felt from their either single parent or either in two-parent households where they were forced to pay bills, pick up the load, and a lot of times babysit like their siblings who were not their children. But because they were forced to help their parents, they in turn had to take on a lot of adult responsibility and pay bills and didn't have that freedom while paying bills. So they too decided to move out at 18. So I always thought like moving out at 17 or 18 was a badge of honor. It meant that I was more prepared, more mature. And I recall working at one of my first jobs while I was in college. I was about like 19 or 20. I want to say I was closer to 20, and I was working at Sears part time while going to college. And I remember talking to one of my white colleagues, and she was stating that she still lived at home with her parents. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. You're like 22 years old. Why are you still living with your parents? And I remember talking to one of my black friends, and we kind of chuckled, like, wow, that's too old to be living at home. Well, as you get older, you start to recognize that my way of living was normal to me. And then my white colleague, her being 22 years old, that was her way of living. But as I got older and had my own daughter, which again, I had my daughter at 16. So I thought, like, anybody over the age of 18 should be living on their own, but did not know that that was a sense of survival. So me and my friend, we were in our 30s, and we were talking about how we thought it was just so phenomenal that we lived on our own at 18 years old, when in reality, it really hurt us. If we would have been able to stay at home, it would have been beneficial. And I just noticed like a lot of my friends from different ethnic backgrounds did not have that same experience. Like they stayed at home with their parents until they finished college. They actually got a degree or they got married, which allowed them to generate wealth. And also, my mentor, who I look up to, she's African American. She allowed her daughter to stay at home while she went through college, and that in turn helped her. With me and my other friend, like who was my best friend at the time, we didn't know anything about credit. So of course we messed our credit up. We didn't really know too much about budgeting. We didn't too much know about like what it took to take care of a household. Like, I mean, you're going to learn how to cook through trial and error. You're going to learn how to budget through trial and error. But in reality, you're really behind going out at 18 because you don't totally understand credit. Like, I can tell you, I was putting things in my name for people when I turned 18 because I'm like, oh, it's no big deal. Y'all be nice. But they were not paying it. So that ended up messing up my credit. It ended up messing up me being able to get jobs because again, I worked in banking for a period of time and you have to have fairly decent or good credit to work at a financial institution because you're going to be handling people's money. So it hurt me. It also, like, as far as like a mental thing, like it drains you. Like you have so much pressure because you don't have a safety net. It gets you in a loop to be in this impoverished, poor mindset that if you had that net with your family, like being able to stay with them, you can make mistakes and learn from them and bounce back from them. Whereas if you mess up your money and you live on your own, you get evicted. And I did go through that. And getting evicted is almost like how it feels to have a felony. Now, I've never had a felony, and I'm not saying it's the same thing, but once you have that on your record, it creates a barrier to move into a place. And a lot of times you're stuck in positions where you are living in I would say an apartment that's owned by a slumlord, or you get mistreated. And like tell people all the time, and I've learned this by getting wiser and working in financial institutions and just learning more about credit and learning more about like mental health, regular health, just getting an education that being poor costs a lot. It costs you a lot to be poor. Like it costs you your health, whether it be mentally, it costs you jobs if your credit is bad. Credit is harder to come by, which means that you are a lot of times credit poor, you're cash poor, because you're paying more for credit. Like if you think about it, if a person has below a 600 credit score, you're probably getting a car loan at a 24+% rate, like something that you would normally see on a credit card. So like you're doing that. So it's costing you, you're paying higher application or deposits because it's costing you, you're paying um more because you don't have anybody to borrow from, because a lot of times it's an economical strain for your family to help you, so you're going to payday loans, which gets you in this cycle of constantly borrowing, then paying it back, and then having to do it again. And all of these things have been things that I have been through. And a lot of times people get on me for saying like I don't want to live in poverty or I don't want to be poor. Poor is not about the amount of money you make, or poverty may it is about that, but being poor, a poor state of mind is drastically different than what I mean when I say a person is poor based off of money. It's a mindset. So having that poor mindset, even if you make six figures, can still end you up in a situation where you're living paycheck to paycheck, where you're unable to pay your bills because you're still thinking in that survival mode and you feel like you have to spend everything and you can't save anything. And again, these are things that I've experienced in my life, and all of this came from moving out at the age of 17. Like I didn't start college right away because my main goal was to take care of my daughter and myself. I've been homeless a few times, again, all from moving out at 18, where I had friends who they could go back and live with their parents, or they could go to college and get done freely. And I always noticed like what was different about me and my friends who actually got through college. They didn't have to move out at 18. And then so it frustrates me when people say, "Oh, as soon as my kid turns 18, they're going to move out of their house. They're going to move out this house. Or as soon as they get a job at 15, they're going to start paying bills." And like that is a lot of stress on a child. Like start teaching them those habits. Like a lot of schools don't teach anything about the stock market. They don't teach anything about credit or retirement. They don't teach anything about budgeting. So a lot of times we're going out blind and we're sending our kids out into the real world feeling like we're giving them tough love without a safety net when it's not fair. We already start behind. So then you're putting them further behind and forcing them to live in survival mode when it really hurts their ability to flourish. Like It's no fault of my own that I didn't feel finish college, one credit shy. But my thing is if I had the opportunity to stay at home and truly focus on my education, I'm sure I would have got done. Now I've done fine for myself. I've been able to make six figures through certifications, hard work, and having some college experience, and also people in my network looking out for me. So I've been able to get um, great paying jobs and great opportunities, but it was really hell just getting from that $20 range to that six figure range. Like it was incredibly selfish. A lot of times when we do things out of survival from that curse, you do things you're not proud of. Like I recall having to overdraw my account to get groceries. I recall having to go to get payday loans because I didn't know any better. I recall working three and four jobs at a time and not being able to spend time with my daughter because I had to work. I got into a relationship that was more of a hypergamous situation because I was trying to survive, not because I wanted to be with that person, but because I didn't want to be homeless at the time. I wanted to lighten my load, but then in turn, that affected me mentally as well as my daughter. And then sometimes it even put me further behind because of being a survival. I had to find a way out of that situation. So, this curse of 18, like putting your kids out at 18 is not always the best thing to do. And when my daughter turned 18, I'm like, listen, you do not have to get out. I want you to go to college. I want you to finish. I want you to be successful. I may not have had every single tool there was, but within my power, I will help you as much as I can. And so my daughter graduated college with a degree in biology. She is on her way to go to be a pediatric dentist. And I told her, listen, people are making fun of you for staying at home. Who cares? You can go to school and focus on school and you can save your money. So when you are going to school, full-time med school or dental school, whichever one you choose, she chose to be a dentist, you can actually live comfortably and you don't have to be in survival mode if something were ever to happen to me. So I want to help you. I don't want to enable you. So I'm not saying if your kid is not doing absolutely nothing, let them stay at home and smoke weed and play video games and have no ambition, but I'm saying motivate your kids to find their passion, help them get there, and don't put them out at 18 because they're not ready. Yes, legally you are an adult, but we still need that safety net. And just thinking of the cost of living today, like the average cost for a single person to live on their own, it's $24 an hour. I had employees in my last role that didn't even make $24 an hour. So imagine trying to find a place making less than that three times rent. Say they make 16 or $17 an hour. They're going to struggle. They're going to have two jobs, and which that may make it incredibly difficult to further your education. And then you're stuck in that hole of just working to live or living to work, and you're not able to do anything outside of that. And there's more to life than that. And I just feel like as a community, especially the African American community, we should do better by nurturing our kids and helping them so that way they stand on our shoulders and each generation gets better. I don't understand like this need to kick them out at 18. And it's actually very heartbreaking because if you think about if you struggle on your own, imagine how it is for an 18-year-old who doesn't understand everything. The cost of living is incredibly high. There are massive layoffs going on. I don't get it. And why is there shame in asking to go back home or living back home with your parents? If I could, I would. Imagine how much you could save. I've known people who went back home after they graduated. Their parents allowed them to stay there, stack their money. They were able to pay off their student loans in a few years, actually able to have a large down payment to buy a house, which helps with generational wealth, and able to move in with little to no debt. Whereas if you're moving out at 18, it's really hard to do that. So tell me your stories when it comes to that curse of 18. Did your parents make you move out? Did they allow you to stay at home longer, so that way you can, build wealth for yourself? I would love to hear everybody else's experience. Feel free to comment, like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for listening today. I'm your host, Marky at Yada Yada Talks. Have a great day.